theater teacher, guy in charge. He'd take us out so that we could, sit down and, ask him questions and stuff like that. And Emmett, the stories kept coming back of them going out to dinner or lunch, and Emmett would be talking so loud about things that he was doing because he couldn't hear in that one ear that on one occasion in his Denny's across from campus, one of the waiters came over and was like, so I hear there's a Hollywood actor here. And he said, oh, yeah, that's me. And he said, well, have you been anything that I might have seen? And then Emmett Walsh was like, well, have you seen this? And I said, no, I haven't seen it. Have you seen this? No, I haven't seen it. He went down like 5 or 6 or 7, big movies that he was in just to kind of give him something to go, oh, yeah. And so he could move on. The guy kept saying, no, I haven't seen that yet. And so he pulled out one of his resumes and said, here, take this in the back and take a look through. And if you have any questions, let me know. But he had that sort of presence, big, loud guy, just kind of getting his voice out there. And he blamed it on the hearing aid, the hearing loss in the one ear. That he sort of belts it out a little bit extra.
Yeah.
Anyway, what city are you in Mississippi?
I'm in a small town called Loosedale.
Say it in Bluesdale?
Loosedale with an L. Oh, Loosedale.
Oh, Loosedale. Oh, okay. And is it? You say it's a small town? How many folks live in Loosedale?
It's a small town, small country town. About maybe a couple hundred people live here. Yeah.
And how much family history do you have there? Has your family been out in that area for a couple generations or more?
Well, I'm originally from Louisiana. My family and I are from Louisiana, but we've been in Loosedale, Mississippi, for about 5 or 6 years now. And
okay. Yeah. And you like it there?
Oh, yeah.
I like Mississippi. I've only been through a few times, though, and didn't get to spend nearly as much time as I would have liked to, but I like that part of the country for sure.
Yeah, I've pretty much been raised in the South. I've never been really up north. The furthest up north I've been is to Tennessee and Missouri, so.
Mm-hmm. I toured with the Lion King for a few years, and so I got to visit a lot of towns and states that I hadn't been to before. So we popped around on mostly the kind of west or eastern half of the country, but as far south as Florida and as far north as I was up, like Boston and all that. But it was nice. I wish that we played Louisville, played Nashville for a chunk of time, and loved being there. But didn't get to Mississippi while I was in the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, how did you get started in your career? How did your career begin in the industry?
Well, when I was a kid, I like a lot of kids, I gravitated towards playing kind of dramatic games, with policemen or firemen, like getting cats out of a tree, or like hostage situation running around the neighborhood. I loved kind of making up these stories and kind of diving into that imaginary world. And I thought early on that I wondered anyway. I wonder if I could be an actor, because I knew about acting. I was a little kid, but I knew what they did. I see them on TV or whatever. And I thought, well, how do you do that? And I grew up in Spokane, Washington, which is on the eastern part of Washington. It's a nice town. It's a it's a good sized city, but it's not as big as Chicago or LA or New Orleans but it had a couple of theaters, so I could at least kind of go, well, that's acting. Those are people in my city that are acting, but again, at an early age, I could kind of tell that this was like a kind of acting that didn't really look fun to me because it was sort of broad and sort of clown shows and stuff like that. The stuff that I was seeing, and they were hauling kids from the grade schools and stuff in to see the broad comedy children's, clown shows and stuff. So I didn't get it. I didn't really understand it. I didn't understand how you became an actor. I didn't understand, if you could do that as a job or how somebody from Spokane could go off and be an actor. So I kind of gave up the dream kind of quickly. And at some point, anyway, before high school started, I was like, no, that's not something you can do. And so I, first I was interested in the band and all that during high school, and I thought that's probably what I'm going to do. I'll probably go and try to be a teacher, a music teacher or something. But I think it was maybe the end of my junior year or beginning of my senior year. There was a movie that came to Spokane, which was kind of a rare. It was a rare event when I was during the period that I was there. I think that I could remember like a couple of movies that filmed in Spokane while I was growing up, and one was Vision Quest, which was a wrestling movie that came. Eventually it came out like in 1984 or 5, but they needed high school band people to pretend they're at some other school, whatever, the school of the main guy. Mm-hmm. Then they needed to form a bunch of band guys, and for the band, the pep band for that team, and another one for a different team, and all that. So it was an opportunity for these band departments in Spokane, a few of them, to get some extra money from the movie production and participate by like learning some songs, going up there and wearing costumes, but playing music during the wrestling matches and stuff like that. Anyway, the long and short of it is that I was able to sit in there just as an extra, essentially, sitting in the fake band in the stands for a week, watching them film the last scene of the movie, and I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I loved the illusion of it. I loved that they had fake doors that they would film people walking through to get onto the floor, and they would, how they would cut the scenes together. Half the time they would film all the audience on one side of the auditorium, and in the colors of the high school that's playing over there, and the other side of the auditorium would be empty, and then they'd switch it over, and we'd all they'd put other costumes on top of our stuff, and we'd go over and fill the stands over there. I just loved all the trickery involved in figuring out a clean and not just clean, but a good way of telling the story. So anyway, then I thought, okay, I need to do a little bit more work and figure out who has done what I am hoping to do. Who can I look at? A professional actor. I need to track one down that has sort of done that. Has gone from Spokane or some place that I could, similar to Spokane. There's not a lot of theater stuff going on, and left, gone off and found a way to do it. So, and the person I found was Craig T. Nelson, which is he's a
wonderful actor.
Yeah, Craig T. Nelson. Yeah, he's a wonderful actor, and it turned out he went to my high school, and Poltergeist was coming out right around that same time, and I loved Spielberg movies. I loved anything that was sort of in this case creepy and spooky, but I thought, oh, this is amazing. When I went and saw the show, this reminds me of what we're talking about earlier, the character actor thing, where when I watched that movie, there was this guy. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I didn't know that he was from Spokane or anything else at that point. And he just looked like a dad. He was playing the dad. He just looked like a dad. And I kind of recognized him maybe for something, but I didn't know him. He wasn't a big name star, and that kind of, in a way, helped too. I thought you could kind of go, oh, I really believe this is a family that are, his house is haunted. And so a few days later, there was an article in the high school newspaper that I went to, and saying, hey, this Poltergeist movie is out, and one of the leads in it is Craig T. Nelson, and an up-and-coming actor, and he'd done a bunch of stuff before then, but he hadn't done Coach yet, or some of the things that made him sort of more of a common household name. And so anyway, I was like, it's amazing. He went to this high school. He walked these hallways. And I thought, I want to do what he's doing. He looks like doesn't look like, he's a handsome guy, but it wasn't like, I kept thinking like, you have to be too pretty. You have to be too beautiful, that they don't, that's what actors are or something. And that's when I gave, that was another reason I kind of said, no, I can't do that. But then when I saw this guy, I thought, well, he's a handsome, attractive person, guy, whatever, but he just looks like a normal guy. Somebody who could live on your street, and you wouldn't be like,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I see television shows that are so packed with the beautiful people, and there's a market for that. Some people, they want to, go into this fantasy land where everybody on the block looks like a model or something. But for me, I don't know. I kind of lose interest. I want to see people that look like somebody that could live on my block, somebody that I could meet at the store or work at my, at my job or cross paths at the gym or something. And anyway, so back to Craig T. I was like, okay, well, let me just figure out how he did it. Did he go to college? Did he go to some acting school or what? And I did a minimal amount of research, and I can't even remember all of, where exactly he went first. But I think he went to UCLA at some point. And I thought he went maybe to Central Washington University too, but whatever I found out, it had to do with college, and he went and he studied acting, and so I thought, that's what I'll do. I'll just go do that and see if it works. It worked for him. He's one I've never had a chance to. I've never met him, but I don't know. I don't know if I ever will, but he's one that if I were to meet him, I would have, a great deal of sort of, appreciation. I'm very grateful to him, even though he had no idea that he took such a big part in a shift of gears for me, a decision to try something. And it really changed my life. I mean, acting still frustrates me, and it's hard to make a living, and to string all the jobs together all the time, and it's I'm not always best friends with the job, but at the core of it is a job that I love, and it's very challenging and fills me with in the best situations. It fills me with pride and it doesn't feel like work when you're pouring in a lot of work on something that you're really interested in, and he gave me a sort of a little bit of a pathway. I had to sort of seek it out. He didn't know he was giving it to me. But if I met him, I'd be like, I'd gush and thank him and tell him how grateful I am, and he'd probably walk away going like, that guy is nuts. I don't know what he's talking about.
Absolutely. This industry is a great business to be in, but like you said, you're not always best friends with the industry because it is hard to make a living. It is gig to gig. It's not a steady income.
It is, yeah, and that is, anything that's like that, and jobs just in general, even if you're in a job that's a little bit more stable than that, than an acting job or something, there's still, jobs are always stressful because if you miss work or the grind is getting you down and there's no way that you can actually take time off because you can't just stop working. I mean, there could be people fall out of love at least for a moment or two or three or a year or more or whatever. They fall out of love with their professions because of those kinds of stresses or that they change a little bit. It doesn't seem as fulfilling or it doesn't seem as one thing or another, But it's not you're right. This is not it's not the friendliest business, My thought is, and I'm not always in sync with this thought, but I've thought to myself this way, stepping into theater school and then into the professional world afterwards, and I try to remember and remind myself of this because I really think it's important that success needs to be framed in a way that it has to do with something that you can do without waiting for permission from a movie studio or a theater company or whatever, an agent or a casting director or whatever. That if success, your definition of success as an actor, if it lays all in that other, somebody else's hands, like, oh yeah, if I could only get into that theater, if I could only get into a movie or something like that, then the job becomes miserable because you will be disappointed. Most people aren't going to just shoot to the top and just stay there. It's going to be ups and downs. You're not going to be getting all the roles you want and that sort of thing. So and it's a tricky thing, because especially if somebody goes in thinking, I want to be rich and famous, and wouldn't that be great? Yeah. The answer is probably no, but a lot of things about it would be great, like having some power, being able to be, have some money in the bank and some choices of the work. But I always think, like, if I had a good conversation with one of my old buddies from college yesterday, and we talked a little bit about this, that if you can, I try to frame the acting part like this. I do, I frame it like this. I want to act. That's the main thing. I want to be an actor. I want to act. But I don't define acting strictly as something that I get paid to do, because most of the time you don't get paid to do it anyway. You're spending more time on auditions that you don't get than the job that you eventually do get anyway. You send these things out. You cram your hours and your concentration and imagination into it. And if you hate doing that, if you hate the part that you don't get paid for, then you're just on this weird slippery slope, because inevitably you are going to be doing that kind of acting your whole life. You're always going to be putting auditions together, and that is acting. Without the paycheck, you can sit in a room. You can sit and write a monologue for yourself in the morning while you're having your breakfast, and you can work on it in the afternoon. Just go out in the yard and be belting it out there, working on the rewriting, but like trying to turn it into a monologue for an audition or not, just a piece that you want to act in. You take your cell phone or invite handful of friends or relatives to come sit in the living room and watch this thing, or sit outside. It won't seem like Broadway, because you don't have 100 people pushing automated scenery pieces around you and stuff like that. You don't have an orchestra playing, but that's at least for me, that's not what I'm going for. I'm happy to be in a Broadway show, but what I want to do is I want to act. And if I get in a Broadway show, I assume that I'll be acting, in that too. One Broadway show that I did, I did act, but in the meantime, I can be successful and happy because I can act every single day, and I don't have to sit and wait. The slow times. As long as I'm happy with acting, as long as that's truly why I'm in the business, is to work on the puzzle that's acting, then you don't need to wait for somebody to cast you in something. You just keep working on that. In the meantime, you can act all the time as much as you want. And no one has a right if they say that's the goal, is to act. If the ones that sit at the end of the bar, or around the water cooler and say, God, they never cast me in that theater company. They never cast me. They never give me good roles. Never get to play good things. I haven't acted in a long time. You can be disappointed about that, but you can't really complain about it in the same terms. Because you could have been acting that whole time. Put your own show on. You could pick any show you wanted, any role you wanted, and start working on it. And so anyway, it is challenging to funnel, a joyful sort of experience from acting in your basement, or with nobody else around. Because ultimately, the point of acting is to share it, to tell a story somehow. And so you need people to be on the other end to see that. But the thing is, we all know people, and there's places all over town that you can call up and say, depending on the town, the size of the town or whatever. But there's places you can call up and say, hey, can I use a recreation center to put on a Shakespeare play for in the summer? And you're not paying you don't have to pay any rights for the Shakespeare play, and you can whittle it down or cut it down to size, or invite all of the people that that also would like to act, and you can and then you get to act. You get to play the greatest roles ever written. All these great roles in Shakespeare or whatever other playwright. And you can do the same thing with movie making. It's we've got more equipment at our fingertips, just holding a phone in our hands than a lot of filmmakers did. In the beginning of this all, back in the beginning of the Hollywood silent films and stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's magic to have a cell phone, and if you don't have one that's a great camera, somebody does, and so there's really no excuse. Now, I guess the epilogue on this one is that I haven't done those things. I mean, I have done acting work. I have researched things, and I continue to work on acting things. Every time I get to a place where I'm like, I want to act. And it does put out that sort of resentment and disappointment of waiting for somebody to offer you a job. But I haven't gone out and done a short film, or it's not quite what what I do, and it's not quite where my ambition lies. It'd be cool to do it, but I really just want to get better as an actor, and there's always something to work on. So
absolutely, there's always room to learn. You never stop learning.
That is the truth, and I guess the bonus sort of thing there is that it reminds you of how important persistence is. I mean, in anything where there's always when it's a bottomless well and there's always something to learn, you have to keep looking, keep challenging yourself, and that sort of thing. But also, persistence is incredibly important for getting the business side going. That a lot of people say, no, you'll audition for you'll mostly audition for things you don't get, and that gets old. But the persistence, I always think that like the effort you make that you don't get paid for is sort of like, I mean, it's not exactly a gamble in the sense that you're throwing your life savings down the tube. It's like you have to put in enough auditions so that you get better. You and also me, and also all of our favorite actors. We got to keep going at it, so that we get better. We want to sharpen our tools and learn more. And little tiny victories along the way, they mean a lot, because at some point you're not making these huge discoveries in acting every day. You're making these little things that help out. But persistence is the thing that is persistence of knocking on the door. It's like just having an infinite amount of coins to stick in a slot machine. It's not an infinite amount, but the coins in this case are energy. Do you have the energy to get up and work on something else? Put another audition in, to send another headshot out, work some more on the play that you're rehearsing, to tighten, learn the lines quicker, whatever. All of those things are to be persistent at it, to relentless. That's the name of the game. Yeah, getting better at it and also getting more work.
Absolutely. Persistence. You have to keep trying, you have to be persistent in this job. You have to have a thick skin, because this job is not easy.
Yeah, that is true. Sometimes it's so rude and whatever that it's kind of hilarious. But I tell you, I've never forgotten a terrible review. I don't read reviews anymore. I stopped several years ago, and because all of a sudden it dawned on me that this isn't actually helping me. These hatchet jobs. It doesn't. There's a purpose for reviewers. But they actually shouldn't be. I don't think actors should read reviews. But the trick about it all is that we're sensitive human beings. It's sort of our bread and butter to be sort of to have our nerve endings exposed a little bit. At least to be able to do that in the context of a scene where a character is losing his mind or about to murder somebody. These different characters that we're asked to play that are going through some of the biggest ups and downs of their fictional lives or whatever. But it's just I'm going off track with it. But where were we going? What were we talking about? Lost my mind as soon as I said it. So it's just that if a character is losing his mind. Now that I don't know what I was talking about. I just lost my mind. I've lost my mind.
That's okay. That's what we're here for. We talk. It makes the conversation more pure.
I'm one of these kind of. I have not a regular stutter, but it's a sort of I trip over myself because I don't know I have a feeling about what it is that I was going to say, but I don't exactly know what I'm going to say it until I've blathered out 10 times as much as was asked, and it's always been the way, and that I've tried to change that. But yesterday, the past couple of days, I went up and visited a friend up in north of here, about north of Los Angeles, about 3.5 hours. He lives kind of out in the woods, and I haven't seen him in over 20 years, and we were good friends in college. And so we just sat and talked. We talked about all sorts of things. Today he wrote me a text. He said, "We talked so much," and he said, "and you talk a lot." He's just out there with his sweet dog, and his name is Bear, sweetest dog on earth, and the two of them live out in the woods, and they don't talk much. I think Keith is doing most of the talking, but I think it's a quiet place, except for when I show up and just start gabbing, talking his ear off.
I can understand that. I'm much of a talker myself. I love to talk. Maybe that's why I fell into radio interviewing. But
well, yeah. Now, and when was that? How long have you been in radio?
Well, I'm 21 years old now. I started professionally doing voiceovers when I was 13. I was young, very young. And
was that in Louisiana?
Yes, Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I did voiceovers for online stuff and radio promos and all that.
That's amazing.
And then I started to do radio hosting. I did a podcast with a friend. It was a old-time radio show. I introduced the song and the music and all that. And then I did that for 2 years. And then I said, well, I love doing radio, but I want to switch gears, try something different. So I discovered interviewing, talk radio, and that time I was doing theater. I got into theater, so I wanted to interview actors and people in the industry. So I combined, talking and acting and interviewing, and did that. And I interviewed. I've been doing that since I was about radio hosting since I was 13, but interviewing since I was 15. And
that is astonishing. That's amazing.
Thank you. Did you?
There's so many things. Like I do voiceovers now, and I did some voiceovers not at a young age, but in I don't know. I was out of grad school. I moved to the San Francisco area, and then I found a non-union radio advertising company that would hire me every once in a while and throw me a few bucks for something. But I just found it so stressful because I'm not a good reader. I'm dyslexic, and so my eye sort of bounces around. So it's easy for me to trip over words, and I'm just like, I'm 55 years old now, and I'm only sort of figuring this out in the past 10 years or so. I didn't know what dyslexia was or anything until about then, and I was like, oh, this is that thing this is what I do all the time, and then had it sort of confirmed later on. But the speaking is sort of similar to how I trip over things that I read. That if I go too fast and I don't see what's in the thought is clearly, if I don't take the time, slow it down, then I will, talk in half sentences and, like I'm fighting against a briar patch or something until I get out of there hacking away at it. But when you say that about doing those things at such a young age, it makes me stressed thinking about it because I am not equipped to do that now. I don't. But how did it feel for you? Did it feel like a sort of natural fit, for you, or was there, was it stressful for a while, and then then it was like, riding a bicycle? How was it for you?
Well, it was new to me. I didn't know what I was doing at first.
Yeah, right. Didn't know to be afraid, kind of thing. Yeah,
but as I got used to it, I start to enjoy it, and I love doing what I am doing. It is a challenge for me still because I'm legally blind. I really can't see well, so I have to rehearse and look and read the script and all that. And
Okay.
For a while I had a stutter as well. I stuttered a little bit, but that's improved. So it was, and it's still a learning process. Like I said earlier, you always are learning. But once I did a few voiceover stuff and got feedback and reviewed it myself, I'm like, this is pretty interesting. I like doing this, and I had a friend that helped me, a mentor. He did a radio show in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and he helped me get work and coached me. And
Oh, that's great. No, there's your Craig T. Nelson right there. There's somebody that like you could go. What are where are the footprints? Where did you go to get from this point over there to where you are now? And you could go. Oh well, here's a couple ways to doing it. That's nice. That's great to be able to have a friend that can be in your corner for that sort of stuff. Just information and advice, that sort of thing, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't imagine doing anything else than acting or radio interviewing or voiceover work. I'm in it for the long haul.
That's great. That's really great. It's such a mystery. I mean, even for having been in the entertainment industry and for such a chunk of time now but I hear about that description of how you have made your way into, how you found your way in and how it evolved, going into the interview part of it too. And it's still so kind of, these are the jobs that most people go, I don't know how do you do that, and you have to, and for me, I had that reaction to your radio experience. It's so foreign to me, even though I have performed on the radio and I've done radio interviews and I've done a lot of voiceovers at this point, for video games and that sort of thing. But it's still so different. You had to blaze a trail, one that others had blazed before, I'm sure, but like most things, but you had to find the people and you had to kind of adapt the trail that someone else might have started on, because it's not always good. Like you said, with your eyesight, that you have to work harder at learning the language part of it, so that you don't, because you can't count on your eyesight, in the heat of the moment. I'm assuming that's kind of the situation. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's how I feel about I have to do that with the dyslexia stuff. I basically have to memorize this stuff. Whether it's an audition, you want to memorize it anyway. But some people have the advantage of being able to dip down into their scripts and take a look at a line as they're doing the scene. And so you have that safety net, and so that extra work, or for play reading, if we're reading a new play and we've got 2 or 3 days of rehearsals, and then we all stand at music stands and read a new play or a script, a screenplay or something, that I can't, even though I have the script right in front of me and everybody's just reading the script, I will trip over every third or fourth word unless I know that script almost like I've been rehearsing it for a few weeks. So I got to go through it over and over and over and over and over. And and the benefit is that you know it better by the time you do it, and it's and so maybe you get further along in your abilities. Maybe you do, and as far as your interviewing skills or your the voiceover stuff because you've been, each project you work on it in a different way, longer than some people ever have to. Things dip down, look at the script, and if they can see it all right, and speak it out in the right order, then they're all good. They don't, and that extra pain in the neck to go in and repeat the work and repeat the work and repeat the work. That can be tedious, but you always get better. The more you work on anything, you get better at it. And so maybe the benefit is that we get deeper in the work in some of those situations, because we have to, figure out, that technical thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you love this business, you have to have the passion for it, the craft for it. If it's not a job if you're having fun, it's. You got to
have some sweat on the brow. It is kind of amazing that it is so fun. When it is fun, and it can be so joyous, and certainly a great way to meet people and collaborate and play tennis with them on stage. It's listening and reacting and all that kind of stuff. It's very personal and intimate, and it's an interesting profession. It can be so much fun, and yet you've got this sort of, with each project there's a sort of doomsday. It's like where you start out, you're working on a new, whether it's a play or whatever project, but you got a date where you're going to open. Like the play's a good example. There's going to be an audience here. They're going to be sitting in those chairs, and we're going to be doing the play. We're selling tickets. We're sold out on a couple of nights. That you have this sort of stressful image. This stressful truth that hangs over your head, that if you don't work hard and you don't, memorize your lines and know your blocking and discover some, good ways of telling the story well, the audience is going to sit there and judge you. They're going to think thoughts, and they're going to walk. They're going to have disappointing looks, or they're going to be out there snoring or something. That is a stressful thing, but I guess that focus that you get, knowing that we all have to work hard, we all have to put in as much time as it takes. If it takes you longer to, like me, for memorizing lines, I memorize pretty slow. But I memorize a lot. That's how I make up for it. I put a lot of hours into it, and then I get off book as fast. It's not fast, but I get off book before first rehearsal for most plays. If I've had the script for a few weeks before that starts, just because I don't want to slow anybody down. I want us all, jumping on the racetrack and running, working on our speed. Mm-hmm. But, on the first rehearsal, as opposed to, just slogging through it for the first couple of weeks, and then go, oh, now we're going to open in a week and a half. Half of us don't know the lines or anything. Always got to push. You always got to push forward. That's it's good to have that. It's good to have the nerves remind you, like, oh yeah, we got to keep going. Got to keep going.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, thank you very much for letting me talk to you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great. I really appreciate you reaching out, and yeah, I'm really proud to be a part of it. I'm looking forward to listening to your other interviews as well. You take care.
Thank you. You too. You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. And that was actor and voice actor Mr. Dan Donohue. Thank you very much for listening. Join us next time, and as always, God bless.